Welcome to When Not Yet Becomes Right Now, the podcast where we dive deep into the moments of transformation, the times when not yet shifts into right now and everything changes. I'm your host, Jen Ginty, and this podcast is all about those pivotal moments in our life journeys. You know the ones, when the hesitation fades, when we take that first step, even if it feels like a leap. It's in these moments that growth and healing begins. Each episode will explore stories of resilience, moments of clarity, and the sparks that ignite real change. From personal experiences to expert insights, we'll uncover how people navigate the complex journey we call life and come out stronger on the other side. Whether you're searching for that spark in your own life or just curious about how change unfolds for others, you're in the right place. We'll discuss the ups and downs, the breakthroughs and setbacks, and how to embrace the right now, even when it feels out of reach. Because sometimes the hardest part of the journey is realizing that the moment you've been waiting for has already arrived. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's get started. Hello and welcome to When Not Yet Becomes Right Now. I'm your host, Jen, and today I have a great guest. His name is Ernest Wood, and Ernest was raised by a single mom who was only 14 when she had him. The same week he found out he was going to be a dad, he got in some trouble and decided to join the Navy and is a U.S. Navy submarine veteran. At 40 years old, he became tired of the guy he saw in the mirror, so started a journey of self-discovery. He published a self-transformation book titled Asshole to Awesome, Journey to Joy and Happiness, and now coaches others to find what their definition of happiness is. He puts together an individualized plan that focuses on the 4 pillars: physical health, mental health, relationships, and legacy. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on. So why don't we get into it? What's your origin story?
My origin story. Well, you read earlier, my mother was 14 years old when she had me, raised by a single mom in a little desert town of Barstow, California. I like to call it, unfortunately, the butthole of California. It is just hot and sweaty. Nobody really wants to live there. But so I grew up in that area. I got kind of some bad habits. I started doing some stupid little things in life. I was stealing from some of the places that I worked. I never stole from any place that I didn't work though. So I had like standards, right? Very low ones, but whatever. And then, I joined the Navy because I was going to be a dad. And it was the same week I got caught doing what I was doing. And so I knew that I had to be a better dad than the one that I didn't have. So joined the Navy and then went in the power industry for quite a while. And I just started accumulating more and more rocks in my backpack, which that's how I like to describe it. I was weighted down by not liking myself. I didn't have any gratitude, no forgiveness. I had no empathy. It was either like I had no idea of what another person's thought or feelings were. It was all about me. And so I finally looked in the mirror and said, man, I do not like that guy. I have to fix him. And that's what I did. So I went on fixing that. And now I help other men find what their definition of happiness, their legacy, and be able to look in the mirror and go, man, I like that freaking guy. He's a good dude. So that's my origin. That's where I came from.
Okay. So what is in your background that, caused you to say, I am going to help others find their happiness?
Well, it's funny because my mother just passed away last year.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And she passed away from cancer and it consumed her body. And when she went out, she was like one of those people that if you were on her good side, she was the best person ever. But if you were ever got on her bad side, she held grudges. And unfortunately, we got in a fight about 2.5 years ago. And she was never able to truly forgive me. So when she found out she had cancer, she kicked me out of the well. She was just bitter, but I think honestly, that's what helped. I don't know if help's the right word, but helped like grow that cancer inside her. She just had so much like hatred and grudge built up. And I was that person too. And then when I started fixing myself and I was able to find those things and how good I started feeling about myself, and then I saw my mom like dying, going through this process. And then her last words to me were, I told her, I was like, Mom, I forgive you, for the will thing and all this. And hopefully you forgive me for the fight we had. And she's, well, or I said, I wish we'd never got in that fight. And she's like, well, you can shit in one hand and wish in another. And those are the very last words my mother ever said to me. So like when that happened, I knew that I wanted to help people to never go out like that. And if you look around our world today, there's so many people that are just bent, like pent up aggression. There's so much like anger for no reason. People just get mad. And I was that guy. If you cut me off on the freeway, we're going to get in a fight. And it doesn't make any sense. It's so much easier and so much. I use the word freedom because being happy with myself gives me a freedom to just do whatever. And if somebody's having a bad day, yeah, they're having a bad day. Hey, sorry you're having a bad day, but it's not going to affect me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great way to have an outlook on life. So, while you were, growing up and before you had this moment where you were really, you knew that it was the time, it was the right now, what do you think was holding you back? What was that not yet, do you think?
The not yet was for me, it was not yet. I didn't know where I was. And that's the not yet, right? I wanted to change, but obviously not enough yet to make it happen. And sometimes it takes a horrible, catastrophic event to be that not yet. Or other times it's just you just don't feel it. You don't have the full on drive to be better. And I wanted to be better, but I didn't quite know how to do it. So not yet. Maybe this time. Maybe this time. And it's the same thing what people do with their diets, right? Like, I'm going to go on a diet, but they're not 100% committed. They're about 95% committed. And they do it for 2 weeks and then they forget about it. And then they gain 5 extra pounds than they started with. Why? Because it wasn't 100% commitment. And that's that moment, right? That's that time when you go, yes, it's time. I'm going to give it 100%. And now it's right. It's right now. It's going to happen, right?
Yeah. For me, my not yet was holding off on my healing journey just out of fear. And because I didn't know if I was going to be able to do all the things that I was supposed to do. I was a mom and I became a single mom. And I just always thought to myself that there was no time for me because I was such a people pleaser and caregiver, right? So there was that fear for me. Do you think that was there a specific like feeling that you got whenever you felt like this is the time and it just didn't quite happen for you? Little one learning to navigate their big emotions? Meet My Moody Monster, the pull apart buddy to help kids understand and manage their feelings. With its fun, interactive design, Moody turns tough feelings into teachable moments, giving your child a playful way to express themselves. Whether it's after a rough day or when those big frustrations hit, Moody is there to lend a hand. Perfect for calming down or even just a cuddle. My Moody Monster helps your child communicate their emotions while learning healthy coping skills. Go to mymoodymonster.com to learn about Moody today.
I think it was just because there was always moments through my life where I would go, dang, man, I need to change. I need to stop being angry. But again, I think it is that little bit. Maybe it's the fear, right? Because change is like kind of scary for a lot of people. And so maybe if I look back at it, maybe I was a little bit like nervous too, because I had a certain persona, right? Everybody liked, well, most people liked this persona because I was a pretty funny freaking guy. but I was funny at the expense of other people. So that was the part that I didn't really like about myself. I did a lot. I wasn't like I always say it. I was like an ist. I was a sexist, racist, but any ist that you can almost think of. And it just didn't feel right to always be judging and always be that guy that had to say the craziest crap. And most of it I just did for effect or like see what kind of attention I can get. So yeah, that's kind of weird. I never thought about it how you just stated it.
Yeah, that is something that's really big for me is the fear that I won't be the person that I am if I heal. If I go on this journey, like what happens if I start to let my guard down? What happens if I'm not constantly, you know, mistrusting people? And because of the trauma that I went through, that is my persona that was built up since I was a child. So do you think that childhood in some way had also molded your way of life, I guess is what we can call it?
Yeah, my childhood definitely molded the person I was. I allowed for me, I never learned like there were certain things, growing up with your mom and she's basically growing up also, right? She's at that age. So there was like I never had to take accountability. I always figured out a way to blame it on somebody else. It was always somebody else's problem. And it was never my fault, right? It was never my fault because my dad wasn't around or whatever the hell this stupid ass excuse is. I just always had an excuse and yeah, it definitely molded the person I became because if I got in trouble, I just blamed it on somebody else. So I never had to face the consequences. And again, that is something that a lot of people do nowadays. I mean, it's crazy. As a kid, I can see doing it because you got to learn your boundaries, right? You have to learn if that's going to be the right way of going or the wrong way of going. But now, when you see a 30 and 40-year-old, 50-year-old adults that can't take accountability for their actions, it's just like it boggles my mind. But if you've never thought about it or if nobody's ever told you, then you're just like that kid who's never, got his butt swacked for being not accountable.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. So now when you went into the Navy, was there a change? Did you feel a change in who you were as a person, or did that actually, you know, keep you going on the track that you realized you didn't want to be on?
So the Navy definitely helped me in a couple things. And I'll give you a quick story of the one, and it was respect. I was standing watch, and they in boot camp they do these little things. They're called ships, and it's a building, and each like section or whatever has their own little boat. And so you stood watch in the ship, and when an instructor or a chief came in, you were supposed to give them the due respect. And one day I'm standing watch, and I'm like, the chief walks in, I'm like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up, dude? And you saw his head turn to me super slow sideways, and he's like, "What's up, dude?" I already knew I was in trouble. Oh crap, I screwed up. So I did push-ups until like my fingertips had freaking cramps in them. I did so many push-ups and so many jumping jacks. It was crazy. But what I learned is you got to give the respect that's due, at that time or owed, right? And for me, that was something that I definitely took with me because when I grew up, I was horrible to my coaches, to my teachers. I was just a jerk. It was just not a good, like a kind person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we all go on these different journeys, right? There's not just the one journey. And it sounds like the Navy was another journey that put you on a specific path.
It definitely did. It definitely helped me out with, being more disciplined, a little more structure. I also picked up a couple of bad things because everybody in the Navy likes to bitch, whine, and cry about everything. So I kind of brought that one in. I held on to that one too. And that's when I went over to the power industry after the Navy. And boy, I took that one. I took that one. That was I wore a crown. I
Really?
yeah, the bitching and whining and complaining crown. I was the king of it.
Okay. How long were you in the power industry?
So I did about 20 years there. I was 14 years as a journeyman machinist, and then I moved down to Carlsbad, California, and worked as a control room operator for quite a while. But, you know, California, we all need to drive electric cars, but we don't need power plants to drive, have them have the power for them. So they shut down all the power plants, and then I went into car sales after that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, weird change, right?
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
I actually loved car sales because that's when that was the beginning of my like transformation, right? Because I couldn't be the jerk that I was working with the people and trying to make money during doing sales. And then I found that I really, really liked sales. I love interacting with people. I love trying to figure out like where they're what they are thinking and like why they don't do things and why they do other things. And then that's when I think that was one of the first times I actually became a good leader. I always enjoyed coaching, but I was I say I was like the Bobby Knight on steroids. I was pretty brutal. I was mean and just over the top. But at this time I learned a couple little techniques. So I worked with 5 gentlemen, and they were at the kind of the bottom when I got my position, my upgrade. And then we took all 5 of those guys, and they were in the top 7 for 4 of the 6 months that we worked together. And so it was awesome. That was when I started realizing those little things that I was working on could help other people.
Yeah. That sounds great. It sounds like a great kind of move into your transformation. Do you have a specific moment where that happened, where you were like, this is it, this is the time?
Yeah, I tell this story. It's about my road rage incident. So there's actually 2 little stories that go together. So I was already working on changing really hard, and I was listening to Brian Tracy on my in my truck where I was headed up to do a job, and it was right at the same spot where he's talking about don't give away your emotions to other people. And at that same time, I look over and I see this BMW getting on the road and he's getting on pretty fast. And I'm like, this guy's going to cut me off. So, of course, I squeeze a little bit closer and of course he cuts me off and I go nuts. We go crazy. I'm flipping him off on the road. I cut off other people and and he cuts me off again. I whip around and I finally get next to him and I look back and there's a little kid in his car. And I'm like, dude, you are such a mental giant that you just like you're so weak. You gotta stop this. And that was the biggest kick in the groin area that I had. Then it was just like, you have to fix it now. And then I was at work. I think it might have been maybe a month later and I was kind of bitching about this job. And this dude goes, hey, you're just like so and so. And nobody really wanted to be like so and so on the plant, right? He was that guy that all he did was cuss, all he did was complain. And so when he told me that, I was like, oh, between the 2 of those, I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm fixing this. And that's when I finally got like everything started connecting and working from there.
Yeah, anger, it's it is a really tough emotion. I love to say that all emotions are valid, and anger is a very valid emotion, but it can get away from us. And I have had my fair share of road ragers. I will tell you, I'm a Massachusetts person, and I do drive like a masshole. And it's something I need to work on. But it's really hard when you've created these kind of tropes for yourself, where you're this person, and then when you hear someone say you're a person that you don't exactly really want to be, that certainly could be a wake-up call.
Yeah, definitely. definitely. Yeah, so that was the time. And then the power plant closed down. So I went, like I said, and I started doing the car sales. So then I had that when not yet becomes right now moment is I knew that I wanted to write this book because I chatted with enough people knowing that like other people have those issues, right? And my job, they just kept messing with my pay a little bit and
Mm.
doing stupid things. And so I said, you know what? It's time. It's right now. So I walked into my boss's office. I told him, hey, I quit. My last day is Thursday and I'm done. And he was a little shocked, but I got to explain with him to him why some of why were the reasons that I did this. And then I just started working on my book. I've been working on the coaching thing, getting everything put together. And I just said, why not, man? I'm going to do it right now. And I saved monies because I knew this was going to be a long endeavor before it starts paying off. And that's it. I know I made the right choice. Um, because following what you find like your purpose is, what you're good at, what you want to do, and if you can make money at it or you can help somebody else and make money at it, that's life. That is like where that happiness comes in. That's that freedom because yeah, there's going to be days that suck and they're just not going to, I mean, we all have them, right? I think we were just talking about this right before
Yes.
we got on. We were both having that day where it was just like, dude, today's just not today. But would you rather be doing this or sitting 9, 10 hours at some job that you hate? Like, right? It's
Yeah.
make that choice.
I am a serial entrepreneur. It is difficult for me to work a job where, I mean, maybe it is my little problem too, where, I don't exactly love bosses, and it's something I have to admit. And, although I've pretty much loved most of my bosses, it was not something that felt right to me. I felt like I was the person to go off into the world and make changes, whichever that could be, right?
Yeah.
So tell me more about the book.
So Asshole to Awesome, it took me, I don't even know, 5.5 years to write. What really helped out was when Chat GPT came around, helped me like structure my outline a little bit. And it helped get from that blank piece of paper. Cause I would get super motivated. I'd be writing 100% and I'd get to the spot. And then I'm like, where in the hell am I going to go? Like my outline was just never solid. So once I got dialed in with that, I was able to write it pretty much about 5, 6 months. And so I wrote it and it talks about like the little things that helped me get better in life and stories that kind of went along with them. Right. And there's a few things that can help anybody, like learning how to forgive is huge. And it's not just forgiving like the other person, it's about forgiving yourself because that is, to me, that is what causes a lot of that pain and anger and everything inside. Because we're all going to make stupid errors, right? We're all going to make stupid decisions every once in a while. But figuring out that you're not perfect and you're not going to be the first person on this world that's, that first person that's perfect. It's it's easy. It makes it easier now to forgive yourself for making those errors. And once you forgive yourself, then also having gratitude, like having gratitude for everything. Even the obstacles and some of the bad things or not so good things that come in your life, sometimes they're there for a reason. And it's to make you grow and help you get better and learn and and then having empathy. So it really talks a lot about those. And then another one a lot of people have is boundaries. Like people just lack the ability to have boundaries for themselves. Everybody's always trying to be like a people pleaser. Well, the nice people are trying to be people pleasers, right? And and to me, like, I can't stand that word nice. I'd rather be known as kind. Like, because nice to me is like that person that gets taken advantage of
Mm.
because they're too nice, right? They're always doing things because they're nice. They're then all their niceness comes back to slap them in their face. And I see it so often. But when you're kind, like you're doing it for a different in a different way, right? You're not going, you're not putting yourself in a horrible spot just to be nice. You're
Mhm.
being kind, you're helping, but you're still having some boundaries along with it. Does that
Yeah.
make, am I explaining that well?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, you know
you
what?
might be able to clean that up.
Yeah, no, you know what? It's for boundaries, it's interesting. It depends on, I'm sure you probably also would agree that it's another childhood thing. It's not learning those boundaries. And you had said that, you know, in your childhood, you didn't really have boundaries. You like just jumped over fences that way, you know, and yeah, boundaries are so difficult to learn to create once you've gone through that like first 20, 30 years of your life, you know. I'm still working on doing boundaries. One thing I wanted to go back to though was the it's not going to be perfect. What we talked about, what you were talking about with the book, and you know, just getting through it and working through it. I think I always like to say that perfect, there's no such thing as perfect because there's always a new version you can create, a new edition you can create of things. It's not worth it to keep working on something to perfection because then you'll never get it out into the world. It'll never be available to others who need it if you're going to keep sitting there and working through it until you think it is, quote, perfect, right?
Perfect is one of those things that causes a lot of people to not do what they want to do in life because they just don't know if they can do it, right? And if you're trying to grow, you're gonna make mistakes. That is 100%. I can that is like one of those things that's guaranteed in life, right? If if you're growing and you're trying to do something that you've never done before, you're gonna make mistakes. Think about when we were little kids trying to ride the bike. I mean, the first few times probably sucked. You probably got some scars on your knees. But when you did it and you learned it. And that's how like I've been able to start enjoying life like almost like being a little kid again in some ways because I don't mind making the mistake. I just try to learn every single time from all the freaking mistakes that I make. Fortunately, I make a whole hell of a lot of them, so I can learn a lot, right?
Well, human beings, right? We are not perfect. There's no perfect human on this planet.
That is the truest statement.
So, did you start doing the coaching before the book, or did you decide to go into coaching after it?
So I initially just wrote the book almost as something for myself. Like I knew like it helped me do something that was very hard to do. And it was a discipline thing, right? I had to do it. I knew that I had to do this book or I would be regretting it for the rest of my life. So I did the book. And then from the book, I chatted with like a lot of people. And I just found out that so many, especially men, like we're so in that weird spot where a guy has a really hard time. I don't, I can't speak for women, but a guy has a really hard time looking at himself in the mirror and going, I like that guy. Like, and then to also admit that they can't do it is something else that's super hard. But there is, our world is jacked up. Like, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but if you look how everything is set up nowadays, we are so far from where we should be because we're so imbalanced. Like we don't have everybody, so many people don't sleep correctly. There are 70% of people, 78% of people are overweight or obese. 50 to 60% of people live in a constant state of dehydration. 131 million adults in America are on some kind of prescription freaking drug. It's just crazy. So like when you throw out those statistics, we're jacked up, right? And to be average in a world that's messed up is just you don't have to be average. It's so easy to be above average. Not that you should be comparing yourself to anybody, but you don't want to be that average guy or girl, right? You just don't want to be that average person. You can be better, and it's so easy to do it. And I always tell, it's all about these like five little fundamentals, right? If you sleep good, you hydrated, you eat right, you get proper, good amount of movement, and then you're able to focus, you can be whatever you want to be in life. Like, and that's no BS.
Yeah, and I think societal norms are something that really hold a lot of people back. I had a man on named Jason Tuttle, and he created a Facebook group called Letters to Zachary because his son had passed, and he knew that grieving as a man was very difficult in our world. So he wanted to create this space for men to be able to grieve without feeling the pressure of societal norms. And I think men very much have that closing in on them in a lot of aspects of their emotional capabilities.
I agree. And it's funny. I think the pendulum swang a little too far, right? Because the pendulum is always swinging. I think there for a little while, it almost became bad to be a man. Like, and I understand it. There's a lot of men that made that happen because there's a lot of jerks out there. But then it swang so far over that it was almost bad to just be a man.
Hmm.
And then, so like you have those different, what, generations,
Hmm.
and there's the like my generation, everybody was just like, suck it up, dude, stop being a sissy,
Mhm.
and I don't want to hear your little whiny ass story. And that was the people that were telling us, like, right, our coaches, our mentors, and everything. And then our group was like, we were trying to be a little better, a little nicer, but we really didn't know how to do it. And I think we were kind of selfish. And then the group right below us, I hate to say it, but they became like a bunch of little sissies. Like it was like, and I'm not, and that's a generalization, right? There's great people, but like they didn't know how to handle the hardships. And that was like they lost accountability because there was no discipline in place. And again, I'm saying this in a big generalization, but I even like my sons, I was so hard on them sometimes that sometimes like they're a little more fragile about things than I am and ever been, but they're able to connect to some of those things that I was never able to connect to. It's just how we fix it and how we give it out to the rest of the world.
Right. Like in our generation, it was don't show your feelings, don't make people uncomfortable with your feelings. It's don't be an angry child, don't make grandma uncomfortable with your sadness. Those kind of things, right? And I think it's important for people to understand that emotions are a big part of, I mean, obviously, of mental health. And if we can learn to accept and to breathe through and understand where those emotions come from, we can really grow and help others grow as well.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge being able to be in control of your emotions. And that's and being in control is also being able to express them, right? But the big thing is not reacting to every little thing that's out there. You can respond, and response is way different than reacting. I think we're in a very reactive world. Everybody reacts to everything and everybody has their opinion on everything. And it's just because we're overstimulated. I mean, we have more stuff coming at us than probably our grandparents saw in their lifetime that we've probably seen a week.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think of the social media, the everything, right?
Oh, yeah. I tell my kids all the time that I was so glad that I grew up as a Gen Xer because, there was no camera constantly following us. We got to do whatever we wanted to do as long as we didn't get caught, right?
Exactly. We're
And now
drinking out of the water hose
right,
and
exactly. So yeah, I absolutely, see the major differences we have in our cultures as, generations. I think it's just learning to work with each other at this point because we're all so reactive against each other right now in where we're at, that I feel like, if we can learn to, cope ourselves, we can help others to cope as well. So tell me about the coaching.
Yeah, so it's taken me a while to kind of dial it in. At first, I was all about the balance, like talking about balance, balance, balance. But that doesn't really register with men. And they look at it, they like to argue about it. And so I've been working at it, and I think I've finally narrowed it down. It's helping men find that their legacy, their happiness, and being able to look in the mirror and go, I like that guy. And there's so many people because we all go through seasons, right, in our lives. And men, like say around 35, 40-ish, maybe a little later, you start going where, dude, like why am I working so hard? It stops becoming about the money and it's about, your family or what you're actually leaving out for the world. And a lot of guys go through that transition, but they don't know what it is, right? You just feel off. You don't you don't really want to spend that 30 hour, 15 hours a day at work anymore. You just feel like, man, I got to adjust. And I figured out a way, like for me and from working with a few other guys, that it all comes back to getting those fundamentals in place because we worked so hard at trying to build that money, that monetary thing that a lot of us leave behind our physical wellness, and then our mental wellness goes because like your physiology drives your psychology. If you're not operating optimally physically, then your psychology is just going to be off. I mean, it's like proven. There's all kinds of studies proven on like how that works. And so by putting those little fundamentals in place, it gives that person the best possible chance to go, okay, now that I'm sleeping good, I'm hydrated, my brain's working right, I'm eating the right foods, I'm getting the right movement. What is the next step? And that next step could be for some guys, it's learning how to forgive themselves, right? So like you have that foundation of those things. And then that next step is learning that how to be able to give that stuff back to the world, learning gratitude, learning forgiveness, having empathy, finding your purpose. Like what can you do to help the next person?
Mm. Yeah, it's really important. Empathy, I feel like, a lot of people don't truly understand the meaning of empathy, and we definitely need a lot of it out there in the world at this point, right? So, yeah, I really like it. I like the idea of getting these pillars in place. It's great. So tell me, where can
Oops.
we, oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say with empathy, even like with empathy, I think a lot of even the wars, like, are, if everybody just had empathy, like the wars wouldn't really happen because then we could look at the other person across the border or whatever and go, man, I understand what you're dealing with. And I understand, but like you just said it, we just lack empathy all the way across the board for the most part because everybody's so wound up in trying to get what they need out of life, right? Or
Yeah.
what they think they need out of life.
Hmm. You're right. Absolutely. So tell us where we can find you.
Ernestwood.com is probably the easiest place to do it. On there, you can actually download a free copy of the book
Oh, great.
and book a call. We can book a call, chat, and see if we're, a good connection for each other. If you want to buy a version of the book, it's on Amazon, and all profits go to help somebody. Right now, all my profits are going to help this little dude. He's 7 years old. He has leukemia.
Mm.
Met him over in Hawaii. Absolutely a fantastic little guy, but he's been fighting it hard. He has to fly back and forth from the islands over here
Oh.
to LA. And so yeah, if somebody like to buy the book, like I said, all profits are going over there to help him out. But yeah, that's my little act of kindness. It's not It's not the most money in the world, but it's just that little tiny thing. And and the last host that I was actually on a podcast, after telling him, he was like, dude, give me the address. I'm going to send them some money. So it was kind of cool. So like it just builds, right? You do a little act and then all of a sudden this person does it and however it works.
Well,
Always do it.
yeah, I was thinking with my moody monster, that's the other part of my mission. So it's this little guy, he's a pull apart monster.
Oh,
I was like, this little dude needs a Moody. So now I got to get the information from you for how to get
that's
him a Moody.
that's freaking awesome. I love that. That is
Yeah.
so cool. That is awesome.
Great. Yeah, that's wonderful. So everyone buy the book.
And get the Moody Monster because they're
So, yeah, so I will put that all in the show notes as well, everyone. So you will have all of that information from Ernie. And, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's been
Absolutely.
a pleasure.
Yes, it has. Thanks so much. I'm so thankful for Ernie coming on the show. I think it's important to recognize when we need to make a correction in life to be the person you want to be. When we live in a negative life, we bring negativity to others' lives as well. And I commend Ernie for seeing what he wanted to change in himself and grow as a person. And now he helps others to find what they want in their lives and grow it for themselves.